Going overboard for visitors is a summit tradition. At the Toronto G7 in 1988, foreign guests who never got to see the great outdoors could at least get a taste of it by looking at a baby beaver in a tank. Well, this time we're trying harder. The federal government has lavished money on the whole Huntsville area where the G8 is to meet. There's even a spiffy new $100,000 gazebo, which visitors won't see because it's 20 minutes out of town. These new toilets are also 20 clicks down the road, a bit of a hike if you're in a hurry. But that's nothing. Huntsville itself has a new $23 million arena, supposedly a media center, except that the media won't be there at all. Instead, the world media will be in this building in Toronto, near the shore of Lake Ontario. But forget the real lake. Inside the building, there will be a fake lake, complete with a dock and canoes and a big TV screen showing pictures of real lakes. Supposedly, the foreign networks will be enchanted.
It will provide a photo position for the media of the world.
But the opposition was not going to miss a chance like this.
For the use of media only, the government is splurging on a $2 million fake lake in downtown Toronto.
And we're going to be proud to showcase Canada to the world, contrary to what the Liberals want to do.
But on this one, the opposition smelled blood.
Maybe the government should consider party planning for Lady Gaga.
We've got a government here that has to create an artificial lake when Canada has more lakes than just about any other country in the world.
We're going to see some 3,000 world-leading journalists visit Canada. We've got an amazing opportunity to show what a great place Canada is to visit.
So, who should we start?
Still, it was a hard sell.
What do you think, Tom? Of that?
Even for conservatives like Tom Flanagan, a former chief of staff for Stephen Harper.
Yeah, I can't defend it. Let's move on to the coalition.
Well, they were not laughing on the government benches today. In fact, the fake lake seems to have crystallized taxpayers' unease with the enormous bill for these two summits.
The government defended the bill, saying the so-called fake lake was not a lake. It was a water feature, and it only cost $57,000. And despite the controversies, summit preparations continued. A giant fence 5 kilometers long went up around the convention area where the leaders would be working and staying. Newspaper boxes and garbage cans were removed so bombs couldn't be hidden in them.
This is the Toronto Police Service.
And police showed off some of their equipment, from sound cannons to break up demonstrations, to a small armada of police boats patrolling Lake Ontario. In late June, world leaders began arriving in Canada, first heading off to Huntsville and then gathering in Toronto. Prime Minister Stephen Harper lobbied leaders to support a plan to fund maternal health programs in developing countries.
We will discuss the Muskoka Initiative, a commitment of new resources to mobilize global action in reducing maternal and infant mortality and improving the health and lives of mothers and children in the world's poorest countries.
The plan was criticized by many because it did not include funding for abortions, but it did raise billions of dollars. The government also joined others in calling for measures to be taken to reduce large government deficits.
I know some people don't like it, it's a loss of national sovereignty, but it is a simple reality. It is a simple reality that we are in a global economy.
But even as the final details were being worked out, conditions on the other side of that big fence were deteriorating rapidly. Protesters and police clashed, vandals went on a rampage, and as I reported that night, the scene was chaotic. In the heart of the city's financial district, a thick black plume of smoke. A police vehicle set on fire by protesters who took over the streets of Toronto. It was a level of violence rarely seen in this city, as roving bands of vandals smashed store windows and forced bystanders to flee, as the city slipped into chaos. It didn't start out this way. In the early afternoon, the protest was noisy but peaceful, attracting tens of thousands of people to a G20 demonstration that was originally billed as a family event. But within minutes, the crowd split in two.
Let's get to the other side, go,
In response, police in full riot gear formed a flank in front of the U.S. consulate, diverting the crowd around the building, a show of force that angered some.
I see shotguns out here being wielded against the people of Toronto against a peaceful demonstration, and I think it's a disgrace.
The summit's integrated security unit sent police to block intersections that led to the summit site. For an hour it worked, but a group of protesters determined to break the blockade kept forcing their way through the police line. And that's when the mood turned ugly. So-called black bloc protesters started smashing windows, veering off the original demonstration route.
The storefronts in front of the Eaton Center, the glass storefronts that line Yonge Street, several of those have been smashed.
Police report 75 arrests today. That number could go up. Several police vehicles were set on fire. No word yet on the final dollar figure for all this damage. The next day, the summit wrapped with a final communique, but even as the leaders were leaving the city, the unrest in the streets escalated again as police began arresting hundreds of people. Here's the CBC's Susan Ormiston.
Peaceful protest! Peaceful protest!
It started with a sit-in outside a specially constructed G20 detention center. But quiet protests turned suddenly nasty. Police say a few charged the line. Protesters say they never provoked.
And when they tried to storm our officers and storm our prisoner processing center, we responded in a very calculated and a very measured response, and once again arrested those people, and they got what they wanted. They got to see the inside of that prisoner processing center.
Another flashpoint in an overly tense weekend.
We were stuck in a cell with handcuffs on us for over 15 hours. This can't be democracy, man.
Over 600 people have been hauled in, most overnight and today. Police with no patience nor time for agitators or a repeat of yesterday. Over 70 were arrested at the University of Toronto, amidst growing criticism that the sweep is unwarranted and excessive.
The people that were arrested last night were peacefully sitting there, and they are all arrested. Now, the consequences are this, you may say, well, so they're going to spend 24 hours in jail. What's the big deal? Also, they lose confidence in the rule of law and the democracy.
Overall, the G20 security team did succeed in its #1 goal.
To protect the world leaders, to hold our fence line, and to hold our police lines to make sure that we were able to do those first two.
But it came at an enormous price. The most menacing show of security this city has ever seen. In the heart of Toronto on Saturday, what wasn't abandoned looked like a police encampment. Like a magnet, the summit lured those bent on havoc and violence. And as predicted, an organized group of black-clad provocateurs ran rampant. Even $1 billion worth of police force couldn't stop it.
That there was a point in time where those violent criminal element, they did take control of the actions, they did dictate what was going to happen, and we were in a position of responding to that.
So, to clarify, you had to let some of the criminal activity happen in order to protect the fence?
We had to let some of that criminal activity happen to protect all of our mandates, and that includes the people that were there lawfully, the people that were peacefully, and our police officers.
At the end of the day, we're talking about 50 to 100 people. Is it worth $1 billion? Is it worth our loss of civil liberties?
It wasn't just organized anarchist crime. Roving troublemakers capitalized on a chaotic downtown scene. We watched as several trashed an abandoned police cruiser, then torched it as police watched from afar. And the fury of violence muted what thousands of people this weekend wanted to say peacefully.
In the days that followed, police showed off a cache of seized street weapons and defended their actions.
We have a responsibility in the city to prevent crime and to protect the people and their property.
while some of those who were arrested and held in this temporary detention center complained about their treatment.
I was then violently taken down by 4 police officers.
My husband, who was sleeping on the second floor, was awoken to a gun in his face.
I was eventually released at 9 o'clock in a state where I was violently shaking.
Media, my name has been Jane Doe.
Many demanded a public inquiry into what went wrong. And eventually a number of reviews were launched. Many of the more than 1,000 people arrested had their charges dropped, and when the 304 people who were charged appeared in court in late August, 73 charges were quickly settled or dismissed. The trials of the remaining accused are expected to be held in the next 2 years. And that's News in Review. Don't forget to check out our website at newsinreview.cbclearning.ca. I'm Michael Serapio. Thanks for watching. It began with a fiery explosion and became an ecological disaster.
Can they keep it from getting on shore? Can they keep it out of those wetlands, off those beaches?
An oily nightmare that threatened to destroy a way of life.
They say it's going to kill all the bottom life. If that happens, I have no idea what we'll do next.
On News in Review today, the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Hello, I'm Michael Serapio. On April the 20th, 2010, a giant oil rig called the Deepwater Horizon was working in the Gulf of Mexico, about 70 kilometers off the coast of Louisiana, when shortly before 10 o'clock at night, it was rocked by a massive explosion. A fire broke out, and in a matter of minutes, the rig was a blazing inferno.
The rig was just fully engulfed, flames about 300 feet in the air, and there were a couple lifeboats on fire by it, and it just was surreal.
The fire consumed the platform, feeding off oil it sucked up from more than 4 kilometers under the seabed. 11 workers were killed, but more than 100 others were rescued. And although a large oil slick formed on the surface, for a while, officials were optimistic.
Right now, we do not have evidence that there is any crude emanating from the subsurface wellhead. What we have on the surface is residual from the explosion fire and the things that were going on yesterday.
But as the CBC's Paul Hunter reported, that optimism didn't last long.
Follow the huge, oily, red slick oozing across the Gulf of Mexico and you'll get straight to the problem. Thing is, the problem, a busted oil well, is 1.5 kilometers underwater, where with a robot submarine, workers are trying to cap the gushing oil. And so far, they're failing.
Progress continues, but it's a very challenging work environment at these water depths and with this complexity. And we'll continue these activities until they're either exhausted or successful.
And if you can feel the heat right now. Oil has been flooding into the Gulf since last week when this massive oil rig exploded, then sank, killing 11 people. The pipe under the rig broke off and crumpled. It's now leaking oil in 2 places, spewing 42,000 U.S. gallons of oil each day. If they can't shut the valve, they'll try drilling nearby to relieve the pressure. If that fails, they could drop a big dome underwater to try to contain it. One way or another, it could take days or weeks or months because
we don't know which technique will ultimately be successful.
Inevitably, memories of the Exxon Valdez come to mind. In fairness, that was much worse, with its 11 million U.S. gallons of spilled oil and a devastated coastline in 1989. Still, looming over the Gulf horizon now, the fragile coastal wetlands of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Florida. Northerly winds are holding the oil slick away from the coast for now, but experts believe that may change as soon as Thursday.
Can they keep it from getting on shore? Can they keep it out of those wetlands, off those beaches?
So offshore, they're setting up containment barriers, but it's a huge coastline, and it's filled with wildlife. They've already spotted whales swimming in the oil slick. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Over the next few weeks, the situation steadily deteriorated. The giant oil slick continued to grow, and there were horrible pictures of birds and other animals coated with gooey muck. The giant oil company BP that owned the leaking well deployed a fleet of ships to try to contain the oil. It also began hiring fishermen to lay down booms and skim the surface. But as the CBC's Mark Kelly found out, for some of those fishermen, it was small consolation.
Frank Turan's shrimp boat is called the Predator, though these days he's feeling more like the Prey. Frank's 65. He's been fishing with his brother since he was 10. This is their life, and their life is about to change.
Maybe it's going to come true what they say. It's going to kill all the bottom life. If that happens, I have no idea what we'll do next. Right.
There's faint hope on the horizon. Apply for an oil slick cleanup job with BP. Frank did that today.
You're not too optimistic, though.
No, that's like I said, there's too many people trying for these few jobs.
The mere mention of a possible collapse in the fishing industry has more than 1,000 people applying for what will likely be about 500 cleanup jobs, many paying up to $10 an hour.
So you came to America 22 years ago?
Yes, sir.
And so you escaped looking for better times from Vietnam?
Yes.
Len Thak says he's always considered himself a lucky guy, until now.
If you don't get a job helping in the cleanup, what are you going to do?
So the bigger problem, I really don't know right now, but there's no food, so at least we got to try to do something. But
Kuzma Tezvich is a third-generation fisherman who didn't want to work for anyone, especially the oil company responsible for the spill. But like everything else, that's changed.
But it's not just working for anybody, it's working for the people that caused the accident.
Right, it's causing the people that caused the accident, it's even, you feel worse, you know, but if it comes to that, if you have to do it, you have to do it, you know.
Lorna Borg is a community development counselor. She's been traveling the region telling the fishermen BP is giving them a lousy deal and they shouldn't take it.
British Petroleum is actually requiring them to sign a 100-day contract. That's what they're telling us. And at their own